Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya.
Who are the parents of Lord Shiva? Can a being exist without a mother or a father? And if this mystery is not about birth at all, what does it teach us about destiny and our own lives? These questions have quietly lived in human minds for thousands of years. In most cultures, knowing where we come from gives us a sense of safety and identity. We often believe our strength, limits, and even our future are shaped by our parents and background. But when we look at Lord Shiva, one of the most important figures in Hindu tradition, this familiar idea is gently challenged. Many Hindu texts do not describe Shiva with a clear mother and father in a biological sense. Instead, they use deep symbols and philosophical ideas. According to several Shiva traditions and texts such as the Shiva Purana and Linga Purana, Shiva is described as Swashambhu, meaning self-existent or self-manifested. Scholars explain that this does not mean a literal physical birth without cause, but a way to express a timeless, uncreated principle. It is important to be honest here. Different scriptures and schools of thought interpret Shiva's origin differently, and there is no single agreed story. This uncertainty is not a flaw, it is part of the teaching. Why does this matter today? Because many people struggle with feelings of limitation due to family, society, or circumstances they did not choose. The idea of Shiva invites us to reflect on whether destiny must always be tied to birth. This video does not ask you to blindly believe a myth. Instead, it explores what these ancient ideas may symbolically suggest about inner strength, responsibility, and self-understanding, while clearly separating tradition from interpretation. If you stay until the end, you will gain a calmer, clearer view of this mystery and how it connects to real human struggles in a respectful and grounded way. And if you find value in this journey of thought and learning, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can continue exploring meaningful ideas together. From a very young age, human beings ask simple but deep questions. Who am I? And where do I come from? In almost every culture, the answers are closely tied to parents, family, and background. Knowing one's mother and father often gives a sense of safety, belonging, and direction. Sociology and psychology both show that family stories shape how people see themselves and their place in society. This is a verifiable fact, supported by many studies on identity formation. When these links are clear and stable, people often feel grounded. But when they are broken, missing, or painful, confusion and self-doubt can quietly grow. In the real world, many people live with this struggle. Some grow up without knowing one parent. Some face family conflict, and others feel limited by social labels linked to birth, class, or family history. These situations can create an unspoken belief that a person's value or future is already decided. This belief is not always stated openly, but it influences choices, confidence, and hope. It is important to be clear here. This is a human reaction, not a rule of life. Modern psychology explains it as a response to uncertainty, not proof of weakness. This is where Hindu philosophy offers a different way of looking at identity. Many Hindu stories, especially those about gods, are not written as historical records. Scholars widely agree that they are symbolic and reflective. When Lord Shiva is described without a clear biological mother and father in texts like the Shiva Purana or Linga Purana, it is not meant to deny family bonds in human life. Instead, it challenges the idea that origin alone defines worth. The concept invites reflection rather than blind belief, and it is openly debated across different schools of thought. From an interpretive point of view, Shiva's story asks a quiet but powerful question. If a divine figure can exist beyond family labels, can humans also learn not to be trapped by them? This does not mean ignoring parents or denying their role. It means understanding that identity can grow beyond birth. The lesson here is philosophical, not factual. Your value is not fixed by where you start. History, education, and lived experience all show that people can shape meaning through actions, choices, and awareness. In this way, the mystery around Shiva's origin becomes less about gods and more about human potential, reminding us that destiny does not begin and end with our family name. When people ask whether Lord Shiva has a father, many Hindu texts respond in a way that feels unusual to modern thinking. Instead of naming a parent, several Shiva traditions describe Shiva as Swayambhu, a Sanskrit word often translated as self-existent or self-manifested. This idea appears in texts such as the Shiva Purana and is discussed by scholars as a philosophical concept rather than a biological claim. It is important to be clear and honest here. Swayambhu does not mean Shiva suddenly appeared without any cause in a physical sense. In Indian philosophy, this term is used to describe something that is not created by another being in time, but exists as a fundamental principle. From a factual point of view, Hindu thought often speaks about reality in layers. At one level, there is the visible world of birth and change. At another level, there is a timeless base that is not born in the human way. Shiva, in this context, represents that timeless base. Different schools of Shaivism explain this idea in different ways, and there is no single, agreed explanation. Some view Shiva as the highest form of consciousness, while others see Shiva as a symbol of the unchanging ground behind all change. These interpretations are debated and well documented in academic studies of Hindu philosophy. When this idea is placed next to real human life, its meaning becomes more practical. Many people grow up without strong guidance, support, or role models. Some face neglect, poverty, or social barriers that make them feel unprepared for life. Research in social science shows that such conditions can affect confidence and opportunity, but they do not fully decide a person's future. History offers many examples of individuals who learned, adapted, and grew without early support. These examples are not miracles. They are results of effort, learning, and inner drive. The symbolic message of Swayambhu connects to this reality. It suggests that the absence of support does not cancel the ability to grow. This is not a promise that life will be easy, and it is not a denial of hardship. It is an idea about possibility. Philosophically speaking, Shiva's fatherless image points to the thought that strength can arise from within, even when it is not handed down. The lesson here is not that parents are unimportant, but that destiny is not fully written by who guides us at the start. According to this view, awareness, action, and responsibility play a role that is just as real. When people continue the search for Shiva's parents, the question of a mother often leads to the idea of Shakti. In many Hindu traditions, Shiva is never described as having a human mother, but he is always connected to Shakti. According to Shiva and Shakta philosophies, Shakti is not a person who gives birth in the human sense. Instead, Shakti represents energy, movement, and creative power. This idea is found in texts such as the Shiva Purana and in later philosophical explanations within Tantra and related traditions. Scholars clearly state that this relationship is symbolic and metaphysical, not biological. From a factual perspective, Hindu philosophy often explains reality as having two inseparable aspects, consciousness and energy. Shiva represents pure awareness, while Shakti represents the force that allows awareness to act, create, and change. Without Shakti, Shiva is described as still and inactive. Without Shiva, Shakti has no guiding awareness. This is why many texts say they are not two separate beings, but two sides of the same truth. It is important to note that not all Hindu schools explain this idea in the same way, and interpretations vary across regions and traditions. This diversity of views is well recognized in academic studies of Indian religion. When this concept is brought into everyday life, it becomes easier to understand. Many people look for strength outside themselves, believing power must come from parents, leaders, or social approval. Psychology and social research show that while support systems are important, inner motivation and balance also play a major role in how people face challenges. People who lack encouragement often feel weak, even when they have ability. This feeling is common and understandable, but it is not permanent. The symbolic meaning of Shiva and Shakti speaks directly to this human experience. Shakti is not a mother who gives identity. She is the energy that allows identity to grow. In practical terms, this can be understood as emotional strength, focus, and the ability to act with purpose. The lesson here is philosophical, not a scientific claim. Power is not always something given by others. Sometimes it is something that awakens within. This does not deny the value of care, love, or guidance from others. Instead, it reminds us that balance comes from both inner awareness and active effort. In this way, the idea of Shakti helps shift the question from "who gave me strength" to "how do I use the strength I already have?" When people search through ancient Hindu texts, hoping to find a clear story of Shiva's birth, many are surprised by what they do not find. Unlike some other divine figures, Shiva's origin is often left open, symbolic, or described in more than one way. This was not due to a lack of knowledge or care by ancient writers. Scholars of Indian history and religion explain that many early texts, including the Puranas, were composed to teach ideas, not to record events like modern history books. The Shiva Purana and Linga Purana, for example, focus more on meaning, duty, and awareness than on timelines or family trees. This approach is widely recognized in academic studies of Hindu literature. One important reason for this choice is that ancient sages believed wisdom was better learned through reflection than through fixed answers. By leaving Shiva's birth undefined, they encourage listeners to think beyond surface details. This method appears across many philosophical traditions, not only in Hinduism. When a story does not give a final answer, it invites the mind to stay curious and open. This is a verifiable pattern seen in religious and philosophical texts around the world, where symbolism is used to guide thought rather than close it. In everyday life, people also face many unanswered questions. Why did a loss happen? Why was someone born into struggle while another was not? Psychology shows that humans naturally look for clear reasons, especially during pain. Yet life often does not provide direct explanations. This lack of clarity can feel frustrating, but it can also lead to growth. Studies in mental health suggest that people who learn to live with uncertainty often develop stronger coping skills and emotional balance over time. The mystery around Shiva's origin mirrors this human experience. From a philosophical view, the absence of a clear birth story teaches that meaning does not always depend on full knowledge. This is an interpretation, not a proven fact, and different thinkers explain it in different ways. Still, the shared idea is that unanswered questions are not empty. They are spaces for understanding to grow. Rather than giving a fixed story that limits interpretation, the ancient texts allow Shiva to stand as a symbol of reality beyond simple explanations. The lesson here is gentle and realistic. Not every question will have a final answer, but that does not stop us from living with purpose, learning from struggle, and finding direction even when the path is not fully clear. One of the most striking aspects of Lord Shiva's identity is his role as a destroyer in the Hindu Trimurti, alongside Brahma, the creator, and Vishnu, the preserver. Many people might initially misunderstand this as something negative, but Hindu philosophy explains destruction as transformation and renewal rather than punishment. This concept is described in the Shiva Purana and referenced in philosophical texts across Shaivism. Shiva's ability to destroy reflects the natural cycle of creation, preservation, and change that exists in the universe. In real-life terms, this teaches us that endings, loss, and failure are often part of a process that can lead to growth and new opportunities, rather than simply being obstacles. The lesson of destruction as transformation has practical applications in daily life. People often feel trapped by their past, their family history, or mistakes they have made. Social studies and psychology show that dwelling on limitations can prevent progress. Yet, if a person can learn to see endings as openings for new possibilities, they gain freedom to act beyond inherited circumstances. This is reflected symbolically in Shiva's role, where destruction is not arbitrary but serves a higher purpose of renewal. By thinking in this way, life's challenges can be seen as chances to reshape direction and redefine one's destiny. Another aspect of Shiva's symbolism is the idea that destiny is not fully determined by birth, parentage, or social conditions. Philosophical interpretations emphasize that while circumstances influence life, conscious choice, effort, and awareness have an equally important role. In this sense, Shiva's fatherless and motherless depiction underlines the idea that limitations imposed by origin are not final. People can rise, create, and transform themselves regardless of where they began, much like the energy and awareness represented by Shiva. This concept is supported by historical and modern examples of individuals who overcame difficult beginnings to create meaningful lives. Furthermore, the symbolism of Shiva as destroyer encourages personal courage. Life is full of uncertainties, losses, and situations that feel beyond control. Recognizing that change, endings, and even hardship can lead to transformation helps people build resilience. It is not a guarantee that life will be easy, but it shows that destiny is shaped by actions and awareness, not just inherited conditions. In this way, the idea of Shiva's transformative power gives an inspirational perspective. Endings do not erase potential. Instead, they provide a space where inner strength, awareness, and effort can reshape life. By understanding this teaching, one can approach challenges with hope, seeing obstacles as part of a natural cycle of growth rather than permanent barriers. This lesson bridges ancient philosophy and modern life, making Shiva's story relevant for anyone seeking to understand destiny beyond the limits of birth or circumstance. Lord Shiva is often pictured alone, sitting in deep meditation on Mount Kailash. Yet this image is far more than just a depiction of isolation. In Hindu philosophy, Shiva's solitude is symbolic of inner stability, discipline, and balance. Meditation, as practiced by Shiva, represents a focus that connects awareness and action, showing that strength can grow from within rather than always coming from external sources. Texts such as the Shiva Purana and interpretations of yogic philosophy describe this practice as a way to maintain mental clarity and spiritual grounding, rather than as a prescription for physical isolation. Scholars note that these depictions are symbolic and serve to illustrate principles of focus and self-reliance, not literal instruction. In real life, many people fear solitude or view silence as emptiness, but psychology and human development research show that spending time reflecting on oneself can increase emotional resilience and understanding. Those who learn to balance internal reflection with engagement in the world often develop stronger decision-making skills and confidence. This mirrors Shiva's example. The divine figure does not act because of external approval, but through conscious awareness and purposeful effort. These lessons are applicable even to people who face family pressure, social expectations, or personal uncertainty. Another key point is that inner strength does not negate the need for care or support, but it ensures that an individual can remain steady when external sources are unavailable. Many people experience moments when guidance, encouragement, or validation is missing, and during such times, self-reliance becomes essential. Historical and modern examples show individuals who overcame challenges without strong support networks, highlighting that personal effort and awareness can create resilience even in difficult circumstances. Shiva's meditation also teaches the importance of balance between emotion and action. In everyday life, people often act impulsively due to strong emotions or feel paralyzed by overthinking. Focusing inward, observing thoughts, and responding intentionally mirrors the symbolic meaning of Shiva's meditative state. It emphasizes that life challenges are not avoided through passivity, but handled with presence, reflection, and deliberate effort. The lesson here is clear and practical. Solitude and meditation are tools to develop inner stability, not signs of weakness or withdrawal. Life may not always provide support, and circumstances may be difficult, but cultivating self-reliance through awareness and reflection allows people to maintain clarity and purpose. In this way, Shiva's example inspires a realistic approach to modern challenges, showing that strength is available from within, and that destiny can be influenced by conscious effort, mindfulness, and balance, rather than dependence on others. One of the most profound lessons from Lord Shiva's story is found in his parentless and timeless nature. Unlike humans, Shiva is described without a mother or father, which symbolizes freedom from limitation rather than literal absence. Hindu texts like the Shiva Purana and commentaries on Shaivism explain that this depiction is meant to convey a truth about consciousness, identity, and destiny, rather than record a historical event. Scholars consistently note that the symbolism encourages reflection on life, potential, and purpose, rather than enforcing a single interpretation. Different traditions interpret this in varying ways, and acknowledging these differences is essential for understanding the depth of the teaching. The parentless image of Shiva invites humans to think beyond labels, social roles, or circumstances. Many people feel defined by birth, family, social class, or past experiences, which can limit their view of what is possible. Sociology and psychology confirm that perceived limitations can affect confidence, decision-making, and future outcomes, but these are not fixed realities. By observing Shiva's example, one sees that identity and strength can grow independently of external conditions. This is not meant to dismiss parental guidance or social support, but to highlight that destiny is shaped by awareness, effort, and choices as much as by origin. Another important lesson is the concept of balance. Shiva embodies both stillness and activity, meditation and action, destruction and creation. This duality symbolizes that life requires flexibility, patience, and deliberate engagement. People who learn to balance their inner awareness with external action often experience greater resilience and satisfaction, showing that inner strength translates into practical ability. History and contemporary examples abound of individuals who achieved remarkable growth by cultivating discipline, reflection, and purposeful action, even in the absence of ideal conditions. Shiva's story also conveys hope for transformation. Life is full of challenges, losses, and uncertainty, but these are not permanent barriers. Symbolically, Shiva demonstrates that endings and difficulties can become opportunities for renewal. This insight encourages people to approach their own lives with courage and patience, understanding that limitations are temporary when combined with conscious effort. Finally, the timeless image of Shiva reminds us that destiny is not pre-written. Human potential is not fixed by birth or family, and meaning can be created through awareness, choices, and purposeful action. While circumstances may influence life, they do not fully define it. By reflecting on Shiva's parentless and eternal nature, we are encouraged to cultivate inner strength, embrace challenges, and create a path that is uniquely our own. This teaching bridges ancient wisdom and modern life, showing that freedom, resilience, and self-awareness are available to anyone willing to look beyond origin and circumstance. The story of Lord Shiva's origin teaches us lessons that go far beyond mythology. While Hindu texts like the Shiva Purana describe Shiva as having no biological parents, this is not meant to be taken as a simple historical fact. Scholars and religious studies experts explain that these descriptions are symbolic, philosophical, and meant to guide thought rather than record events. Different traditions interpret Shiva's parentless nature in various ways, and it is important to acknowledge these differences without assuming one version is the absolute truth. This uncertainty itself is part of the lesson, reminding us that not every question in life has a single answer, but we can still find meaning and guidance through reflection. The symbolism of Shiva, being both fatherless and motherless, connects to human experiences today. Many people feel limited by family, society, or circumstances beyond their control. Social science and psychology confirm that external conditions can influence confidence, opportunities, and choices, but they do not fully define a person's potential. Shiva's example reminds us that inner strength, awareness, and effort can shape destiny, and that we are not entirely bound by where we come from. This is a realistic and practical insight, encouraging people to take responsibility for their own growth while still valuing support and guidance from others when it exists. Another important point is that challenges, endings, and obstacles are not permanent barriers. Just as Shiva represents destruction and renewal, life's difficulties can be transformed into opportunities for learning, reflection, and improvement. Meditation, self-reliance, and purposeful action, inspired by Shiva's symbolic example, provide ways to develop resilience and clarity even when external support is limited. In the end, the parentless image of Shiva is a powerful reminder that destiny is not fully written by birth or circumstances. We are capable of shaping our own lives, finding strength within, and creating meaning even when the path is unclear. By reflecting on this ancient teaching with honesty and openness, we can approach life with hope, courage, and a deeper understanding of what it means to truly grow and live with purpose.